Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supreme human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vasudev, the author. Nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in the classes of the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all their struggles are almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as irrevocable fact. Om Jnanadinandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunveditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you all for being here this fine morning. We're continuing hearing about Hiranyakashipu terrorizing the universe, the OG terrorist. We have some small-time terrorists today who they think that they're such a big deal. They're destroying a few buildings or killing a few hundred people. It's terrible. We're not going to make light of this. But if we think of actually what Hiranyakashipu did, how he was so fearful that even the demigods would shudder in fear just at the movement of his eyebrows. He gave great pain to a pure devotee of Krishna, Prahlad. So that is the greatest fault of Hiranyakashipu. And will we read some verses or just go into?
We can read translation from 1 to 20 and then focus on
1 to
19.
20. Okay.
Yeah. Somebody, yes.
We do that every time?
Yeah, we do it, right? Yeah.
So I'll read this summary. This chapter fully describes how Hiranyakashipu obtained power from Lord Brahma and misused it by harassing all the living entities of the universe. By severe austerities, Hiranyakashipu satisfied Lord Brahma and obtained the benedictions he desired. After he received these benedictions, his body, which had been almost entirely consumed, was revived with full beauty and a luster like gold. Nonetheless, he continued to be envious of Lord Vishnu, unable Lord Vishnu's having killed his brother. Hiranyakashipu conquered everyone in the 10 actions and the 3 worlds, and brought all living entities, both demigods and asuras, under his control. Becoming the master of all places, including the residents of Indra, whom he had driven out, he began enjoying life in great luxury, and thus became mad. All the demigods, but Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, and Lord Shiva came under his control and began serving him. Despite all his material power, he was dissatisfied, because he was satisfied with him, and they cursed him with determination. Eventually, all living entities within the universe, represented by the demigods and sages, prayed to the Supreme Lord for relief from Hiranyakashipu's rule. He informed the demigods that they and the other living entities would be saved from the fearful conditions created by Hiranyakashipu. Since Hiranyakashipu was the oppressor of all the gods, the followers of the Vedas, the cows, the Brahmins, and the religious saintly persons, and since he was envious of the Supreme Lord, he would naturally be killed very soon. Hiranyakashipu's last exploit would be to torment his own son Prahlad, who was a Mahabhagavata, an exalted Vaishnava. Then life would end. When the demigods were thus reassured by the Supreme Personality of God, everyone was satisfied, knowing that the miseries inflicted upon them by Hiranyakashipu would come to an end. Finally, Narada Muni describes the characteristics of Prahlad, the son of Hiranyakashipu, and describes how his father envied his own qualified son. In this way, the chapter ends. So we read one by one? Each translation.
The Muni continued. Lord Brahma was very much satisfied by Hiranyakashipu's austerities, which were difficult to perform. Therefore, once the solicited for benedictions, he granted them, although they were rarely to be achieved.
Lord Brahma said, O Hiranyakashipu, these benedictions for which you have asked are difficult to obtain for men. Nonetheless, O my son, I shall grant you them, although they are generally not available.
Then Lord Brahma, who was infallible benedict, departed, being worshipped by the best of the humans, Hiranyakashipu, being praised by three seasons and stingy portions.
The Hiranyakashipu, having thus been blessed by Lord Brahma, and having acquired a lustrous golden body, continued to remember the death of his brother, and therefore be envious of Lord Vishnu.
Hiranyakashipu, the conqueror of the entire universe, indeed the great demon conquered all the planets in the three worlds, upper, middle, and lower, including the planets of the human beings, the Gandharvas, the Gandhas, the Gurdans, the Siddhas, the Charas, and the Taras, the great saints, Yamaraj, the Manus, the Yakshas, the Rakshasas, the Pitas, and their masters, and the masters of the ghosts and the Dutas. He the rulers of all the other planets where there are living entities and brought them under his control. Conquering the ghosts of all, he seized their power and influence.
Hiranyakashipu, who possessed all opulence, began residing in heaven, his famous Mridanga garden, which is enjoyed by the demigods. In fact, he resided in the most opulent palace of Indra, the king of heaven. The palace had been constructed by the demigod architect Vishwakarma and was as beautifully made as the palace of fortune of the entire universe resided there.
The steps of King Indra's residence were made of coral. The floors bedecked with invaluable emeralds. The walls were of crystals and the columns of Veduria. The wonderful canopies were beautifully decorated. The seats were bedecked with rubies, and the silk bedding, as white as snow, was decorated with pearls. The ladies of the palace, who were blessed with beautiful teeth and the most wonderfully beautiful faces, walked here and there in the palace. Their ankle bells sang melodiously and saw their own beautiful reflections in the gem. The demigods, however, being very much oppressed, had to bow down and offer obeisances at the feet of Hiranyakashipu, who chastised the demigods very severely for no reason. The Hiranyakashipu lived in the palace and secretly ruled everyone.
O my dear king, Hiranyakashipu was always drunk on strong-smelling wines and liquors, and therefore his coppery eyes were always rolling. Nonetheless, because he had powerfully executed great austerities in mystic yoga, all was admirable. All but the three principal demigods, Lord Brahma, Lord and Lord Vishnu, personally worshipped him to please him by bringing him various presentations of own hands.
O Maharaj Yudhishthira, descend Pandu, by dint of his personal powers, Hiranyakashipu, being situated on the throne of King Indra, controlled the inhabitants of all the other planets. The two Gandharvas, Vishvasu and Tumburu, I myself and Vidyadharas, Apsaras and sages all offered prayers to him again and again just to glorify him.
Worshipped by sacrifices offered with great gifts by those who strictly followed the principle of Varna and Ashrama, Hiranyakashipu, instead of offering shares of the oblations to the demigods, accepted them himself.
As if in fear of Hiranyakashipu, the planet Earth, which consists of 7 islands, delivered food grains without being plowed. Thus it was resembled cows like Surbi of spiritual world, or the calm Dugdha of heaven. Yield sufficient food grains, the cows supplied abundant milk, and the outer space was beautifully decorated with wonderful phenomena.
By the flowing of the rivers, the various oceans of the universe, along with their tributaries, rivers, which are compared to their wives, supplied various kinds of gems and jewels for Hiranyakashipu's use. These oceans were the oceans of salt water, sugarcane juice, wine, clarified butter, milk, yogurt, and sweet water.
The valleys between the mountains became field of result for Hiranyakashipu. By those influence of all the trees and plants producing fruits and flowers profusely in all seasons, the pouring water, drying and burning, which are all qualities of departmental heads of the universe, namely Indra, Vayu and Agni, were all directed by Hiranyakashipu alone. without assistance from the demigods. In spite of achieving the power to the control in all directions, and in spite of enjoying all types of dear sense gratification as much as possible, Hiranyakashipu was dissatisfied because instead of controlling his sense, he reminded their servants.
Wow. Text 20.
20. Hiranyakashipu thus passed a long time being very much proud of his opulence and transgressing the law and regulations mentioned in the authoritative Shastras. He was therefore subjected to curse by the 4 Kumaras, who were great Brahmanas. Prabhu, we are focusing on text 19 actually.
Okay. Good. Saitham Nirjita Kakub Ekara Vishayan Ho Pajosham Punjano Natripyat Achitendriyaha
That's you, Prabhu.
Saitham nirjita kubbe
Ekarad Vishayan Priya
Yathopajosham Munjano
Te Prayad Ajitendriya
Okay, bro.
Once again, please read the word for word.
Sahi Hiranyakashipu, thus Nirjita conquered, Kapil, all universe, Ekarat, the one emperor of the whole universe, Vishayan, material sense objects, Priyan, very pleasing, Ha Upajosham, as much as possible, Gunjana, enjoying, Na, did not, Adhirapya, was satisfied, Adhirapya, being unable to control the senses.
And translation to you, please.
In spite of achieving the power to control in all directions, and in spite of enjoying all types of dear sense gratification as much as possible, Hiranyakashipu was dissatisfied because instead of controlling the senses, he remained their servant.
Purport, Srila Prabhupada. This is an example of asuric life. Atheists can advance materially and create an extremely comfortable situation for the senses, but because they are controlled by the senses, they cannot be satisfied. This is the effect of modern civilization. Materialists are very much advanced in enjoying money and women, yet dissatisfaction prevails within human society, because human society cannot be happy and peaceful without Krishna consciousness. As far as material sense gratification is concerned, materialists may go on increasing their enjoyment as far as imagined, but because people in such a material condition are servants of their senses, they cannot be satisfied. Hiranyakashipu was a vivid example of this dissatisfied state of humanity. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we are seeing the personification of asuric behavior in Hiranyakashipu. Krishna explains in detail in Bhagavad Gita the mind and behavior of an asura. There's one chapter, 16 I believe, right? The divine and demoniac natures. And one very famous section, Krishna is describing how a materialist, how an asura speaks. How do they speak? Ishwaraham aham bhogi, the controller. I'm the enjoyer. Siddhoaham balavan sukhi. I'm perfect, I'm powerful, and I'm happy. So this is our fault in material consciousness, is to think that I'm the controller and I'm the enjoyer. When actually, who's the controller and enjoyer?
Supreme
Krishna says that he is the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, he is the controller of all planets. Bhutan, how does it go? Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Bhutanam Sarva. Third line?
Ananda.
Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam Yatmamam Shanti. He's the Suhrid, he's the dear friend of all living entities. And if we do this, we can be at peace. And who is not at peace? Because he is not only not recognizing that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and controller, but in fact, he himself is trying to become the supreme enjoyer and controller. And he's doing actually a pretty good job. Better than anyone else has done before. You gotta, give a little props, a little round of applause. All right. Pretty amazing. And what he doesn't realize actually is that all of the power he has, control all the demigods, all the power he has to make it rain, to do the services of Vayu, Agni, all the demigods, it's coming from Krishna anyway. And when Prahlad tells him this, he gets furious. So, this problem is the Asura doesn't understand that Krishna is the real doer of all sacrifices, the real object of all service, he's the center of everything. We want to become the center of everything. So it's a strange situation we're in this world that we can pretend like we're the center of attention. It's like we think we're the main character in the movie, right? You go to the movies and you see the heroic protagonist and you identify with them. Wow, how awesome, how beautiful. And they're so charming, charismatic, fearless. Some superhero maybe you watch. I remember when I first watched Spider-Man. Yeah, and I remember running around the house and jumping up on the couch, pretending to shoot webs like Spider-Man. We want to be the superhero. We want to be the main character. And our culture is actually trying to give us this consciousness actively. Yes, you are the main character. You are very important. Right? You go into any store, and how do they treat you?
Yeah.
You're so important.
Even administration.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how we distribute things. Because this consciousness, they think that we think we're the most important. We think we are the center of attention. That everything revolves around us. And when you take it to a serious extreme, then you become something like Hiranyakashipu. So we should recognize our tendencies that are similar to Hiranyakashipu. The Bhagavatam teaches us both what to do and what not to do. And so we hear of Prahlad Maharaj and we may identify with some of his qualities. And we might think, yeah, I've developed some good qualities for my practice. Okay, that's good. We should recognize we've made progress. But we shouldn't be afraid to look at the demons and see, oh no, actually, I identify with Hiranyakashipu. So, for example, how does he lead? What is his leadership style? Did anyone notice that in these verses we were reading? What type of manager is Hiranyakashipu?
Inducing fear.
Say that again?
Inducing fear.
Inducing fear. Yeah, he's leading. He's trying to establish his position through his own power and making them afraid of him. And it seems to be working. Even Narada rightly started speaking in the first person a few verses back. Narada says, yeah, he says all these great souls, and I myself offered prayers to him again and again just to glorify him. Even Narada, who's the son of Brahma, who is our Acharya, who's traveling around the whole universe to enlighten everyone, even he was dominated. And Prabhupada says in the purport that sometimes it so happens that great personalities, even great devotees, can also be controlled by the asuras. So yes, fear. And?
That everyone should work for his benefit and not the benefit of everyone.
Yeah. Like, he didn't give the sacrificial offerings to the demigods, but he accepted them himself. So greed. See, everything for me, everything should go. Like, imagine we take up some asura will remove the deities, I will stand there on a throne, and you bring me all the offerings. For 6 times a day you worship me. That's what he's saying. But he's saying no deities anywhere. And all of those offerings, you bring all of them. Yeah. How else did Hiranyakashipu lead?
He also chastised demigods for no reason, so it's kind of like toxic bullying type of environment.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the material world
Totally.
consciousness,
Yeah,
that's how I
It's
relate to
relevant.
it.
He's a toxic bully.
Okay.
Yes, he chastised the demigods for no reason. Because this is uncontrolled anger, right? You have some disturbance in your own heart and you lash at others. We maybe have seen parents do this, or a boss, uncontrolled anger. Yeah. And?
I think we can name it as a dictatorship.
Yes, in fact, that exact word was used, ekarat. Prabhupada once translates it as the one, like in the verse we recited, the one emperor of the whole universe. But then it's used again in the previous verse, and Prabhupada says, dictator is the meaning. Like, who's a dictator you think of when you think of this word? Kim Jong-un, yeah, and Hitler is who I think of, yeah. Stalin in Russia. So generally, people who are intoxicated with power and cause great suffering to people. Okay, so fear, wanting everything to come to him, bullying, lashing out violently against everyone. And yeah, so this is Asuric leadership, and we should be cautious to notice we're all leaders in different capacities. If someone is in a junior role to us in our place or in the ashram setting, maybe we're initiated, and for some reason we have some position of superiority, then we need to be very cautious to notice our style of influence. Maybe instead of leader, we may not identify as a leader. But we all have influence over others who are in a apparently lower position.
Is there a difference between, instead of using leadership, could we be using dictatorship here? Because leading is something where it just inspires people, maybe.
Depends how we define the leader, sure. It's good to be clear. So I'm using the word leader in a very general, broad sense. Not necessarily a good one, not necessarily an inspiring one. They bring up this point because that's the other side. There's a spectrum of leadership. Hiranyakashipu is kindly showing us what the negative end of the spectrum looks like. And the best end of the spectrum looks like Srila Prabhupada's leadership. And so, how does Srila Prabhupada lead? You mentioned the word inspiring. So, Srila Prabhupada, through his own character, right? He's the founder Acharya, which means through his own exemplary actions, he inspires to follow his lead. And how else did Prabhupada
He
lead?
had humility. He always referred to him as a servant. Instead of Hiranyakashipu, who thinks of himself like a god.
Brilliant.
So their mindset's very different.
Yeah, I'm just a servant of my Guru Maharaj. And he even said of his disciples that you are all the representatives of my Guru Maharaj. And I'm so grateful to you for helping me to fulfill his mission. How else did Srila Prabhupada lead?
I heard from a devotee that Srila Prabhupada was a thunderbolt when it was necessary. So he would chastise or he would correct if that was needed, but it was very soft in his dealings.
There's also this expression Prabhupada would use, the heart of a Bengali mother,
and
the courage of a British soldier. Yeah. Yeah, so we see that in Prabhupada. Whereas on the other hand, Hiranyakashipu unnecessarily lashing out, chastising the demigods, just to show I'm powerful. You know, you get some pleasure, some twisted pleasure to show that you're better than others if you're contaminated with ignorance and passion. So we should be cautious. We should recognize from this pastime, okay, do I get pleasure being better than others? Like when I play an instrument better than someone else, do I feel some pleasure? When I can sing better, when I can recite a shloka better, give a better class. Anyway, better, what does better mean? If maybe I can cite so many verses in my class, but someone else, no verses, but there's love for Krishna, who's giving a better class. Or someone who sings the ragas just so perfectly, but for their own glorification. Whereas someone who has got no sense of tone, and they're singing really for Krishna's pleasure, who is a better singer? So we should recognize, do I actually feel pleasure when I'm better than others? Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that might be contradicting because the person who have learned this thing, for example, you are seeing this. Because when I first started learning the thing, although I don't know how to play it, but you're saying, people say that I'll just sing from my heart, but actually the person who have learned it, especially Krishna, he put his efforts in sadhana to learn and to serve God.
Yes.
So isn't that like that's why he should be better?
So what's the essential feature?
He did it for Krishna. He learned it for Krishna.
So the essential principle of pleasing Krishna. So if you can play the harmonium perfectly and you don't please Krishna, you don't have the essence. So it's useless. There's so many good piano players in the world. Brilliant. They fill a whole concert and make hundreds of thousands of dollars just playing piano. But they're doing it for them, and it's useless. Ultimately, it's getting them nothing. But someone who doesn't even know how to play, just can clap. You know, think of like simple. When you go to Vrindavan, you see these widows, and they're simple, just singing from their heart. And that's unlimitedly better. Yeah. So back to leadership style. How else did Prabhupada lead? He said humility, he was inspiring, he set the example with his own behavior, and?
He was the controller of his senses.
So this verse is specifically pointing out that Hiranyakashipu was in control, he was the servant of his senses. He was a Gaudas, whereas Prabhupada is a Goswami. Yes, brilliant. And?
I think also he will remove obstacles from his disciples. Whenever he saw like, okay, these people cannot do this, they might try to do this.
He was making life easier. He was facilitating their service. Like he would sign off his letters, your ever well-wisher. Non-envious, always thinking of the good of his disciples. Everyone. Yeah, okay.
He has strong faith in the mercy of Krishna. Like when he was coming to America on the ship, he was praying to the Lord, saying he doesn't know why he's going there. It's the Lord's direction. So anything and everything that he did for the movement, sometimes even with the difficulties, he always trusted the power and the mercy of the Lord, and that's how he achieved so much.
Great. That's faith. Yeah, and this is one of the qualities of a Brahmana. Actually, so Krishna gives both descriptions. He gives asuric qualities and gives qualities of devotees and Brahmanas. So, Shamo-damas tapashaucham, he lists Shama, peaceful, Dhamma, sense control, Shama-dhamma tapa, austere, Shocha, pure, Shantir, arjavam, honest and tolerant, Jnana Vijnana, they have knowledge, religiousness, we can say faith, and those are the qualities of a Brahmana. Yeah. So, thank you, faith and Krishna. Okay, one more.
Visionary.
Sorry? Visionary. Yeah, definitely. And the vision comes from the Shastra and from the Parampara. Like the Mayapur temple, we were all, many of you last night helping with TOVP service. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had the vision for that temple, and Srila Prabhupada manifesting that vision. Yeah. Okay, one more.
equally viewed everyone as parts and parcels of Krishna.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. Vidyaya
the
sampane.
name
Brahmane
Brahmane
Gavya
Gavyahastini
Shri
Shri
Chaiva
Chaiva
Shvapake
Shvapake
Pandita
Pandita Sam.
Samashana. Yes. So one who self-realized sees all living entities equally because the spirit soul is within every living being. So Antariksh brought up one essential point based on this verse is that Hiranyakashipu is an asura because he was servant of his senses. He was letting his mind run the show, whereas someone who is a demigod is in control of their senses. And we should recognize this, again, in our own areas of influence, something we should take note. What area of the spectrum of leadership, of influence style, I fall into? Am I trying to force people by my own power or by guilt? Sometimes we try to get an emotional appeal and guilt people to do what we want. Am I trying to manipulate people? Or am I genuinely trying to inspire others for their well-being? Am I really thinking what's not just for me, but also for them, right? So Hiranyakashipu was thinking, what's best for me? And everyone should serve me. But someone who is broad-minded, they think of the well-being of all living entities. Yeah.
Prabhu, can we go to the verse number 13?
Verse number 13. Yes. Drinking liquors, eyes rolling. Yes. Okay, yes, verse 13.
Yes, as it is said here, Lord Brahma, Shiva and Vishnu all worshipped him.
No,
But
All by
All
everyone
but.
but them. But the three principal demigods.
It's here, but
Okay. Lord Narad, he was a great devotee and he had good knowledge of Shastras too. Why was he terrorized? I mean, why did fear control him?
We can't assume that fear controlled him. It may just be circumstantially. It was most favorable to just go along with it. Okay, yeah, Namo Hikashipaya. We can't assume that Narada was controlled by fear. Because anyway, Narada is an eternally liberal soul. He must have been doing this somehow to facilitate his service. I can't say for sure.
It's like Kamsan Devaki, Kamsan Vasudev. Vasudev was just going with the flow, trying to please him in that moment, but he also worked with people out to not. This not maybe also is.
Yeah, and even Narada Muni in Krishna's pastimes facilitates the killing of Krishna's brothers. Right? He says, let's kill them faster so Krishna can come. So we can't understand the mind of Narada Muni. Well, the Acharyas tell us there that Narada Muni was so eager to see Krishna, to have Krishna appear, that he wanted to speak. And also there's a backstory to those older brothers of Krishna, why they were killed. So there must be some greater part of the story that we're not aware of why Narada Muni was doing this.
Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe in one of the texts it was mentioned that Shiva and Brahma, they were controlled by him.
Not that I know of. It says very clearly here that they did not worship him. Yeah. Although the essential point, again, is to be a Gotami, to recognize our tendency towards serving our senses, and very cautious, recognizing that if we let this tendency go too far, we'll develop these asuric qualities. We'll start to manipulate others. We'll start to use our own power to get others to do what we want to do. We will we'll cause pain to others around us rather than pleasing those around us. So it's really important that we study the Shastra, we compare our own state of consciousness to the personalities that we are reading about. Both the saints and the sinners, the asuras, right? And this is the first step, actually, which Srila Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Instruction, that controlling our senses is so important, so essential, and that if you can just do this one thing, if you can control your senses, you can become a spiritual master fit to make this all over the world. Wow. If you become a Goswami. And you don't have to wear saffron to become a Goswami. It's an injury. And very easily we can control our senses. How? Rupa Goswami also tells us. How do you easily control your senses? Yes? By?
The three.
Yes, that's the analysis, is we should control our tongue, belly, genitals. But specifically the tongue.
Yeah.
Yes? By serving the Lord, yes. And the one verse says, Sevan mukyehi jivado, that starting with the tongue, then we can learn to actually see Krishna. Jiva, so by tasting prasadam and by chanting Hare Krishna. That's how Prabhupada describes. We take the medicine of prasadam, and our diet is prasadam, and our medicine is chanting Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, by engaging our senses and serving the Lord.
Yes, Krishna Krishikesha Seva. Yeah, so Krishna is the controller of the senses, and when we use our senses in the service of the master of the senses, Sarvopati Vinirmuktam, we become free from all our upadis. I'm American, I'm Indian, I'm Chinese, I'm male, female. And we realize Gopi Vartu Dasan, Gopi Vartu Padamalewa Dasa Dasa Nudas. I'm just the servant of the servant of the maintainer of the gopis. So yeah, simple. Serve Krishna, become a Goswami. Sounds good? Any questions? Maharaj, any additions?
Thanks very much. Yeah, Narada Muni's an extraordinary fellow, you know. The role that he plays, it's dual. And the thing that Krishna likes most, it seems to me, out of life is Ama. And he engages his students like anything in these pastimes. We are in a drama, we think like Hercules in America. We have identities with gender and this and that. Oh, I'm a IT person. and we've got all these identities, and that's also a drama, because that's not what, when you strip everything, the naked truth is, I'm I'm a Das, but most of us think we're a boss. So that's the illusion. I mean, theater is like, it's an illusion, and there's the real theater, the real drama, which is the pastimes of the Lord. Engages this devotees in these pastimes. But I was quite interested. Narada Muni likes to accelerate the pastimes. Let's get on with the show. That kind of mood, want to come, it's very interesting. He's just interesting. And have you ever been to Narada Falls?
No.
Yeah, there's in the state of Washington. There's a big mountain, and we took the youth bus up to the top. Most of them were Floridian kids. They'd never seen snow before. So we drove all the way up to the top where there's snow, and that's myself and another devotee. We decided to walk down as far as we could. And right up there is something called Narada Falls. So they have this flag there, Narada Falls, and explains that this is named after a Hindu mystic.
Wow.
Yeah. So, if I'm not mistaken, it says something about it was able to travel through the different planetary systems. Wow. So it's named after him, and it's wonderful. it cascades a little bit, hits a level, and then it comes down to another level. It's a gorgeous thing, so.
Let's do a Bhakti Academy trip.
Yeah. So, like, waterfalls, they're always, people are mystified by them. So I think they get mystified by those waterfalls, and also Mridanga, the way he falls with his pastimes. I just want to say, I haven't been with you this morning. Our program has been very different with Nityananda, and we've been on a fundraising program with the TFEP. So we were at Niagara Falls yesterday, and after we did the fundraising, which was a good amount, we just had to sneak over to see the falls. So they have all colored lights on the falls at night and fireworks. So if you think everyone's sleeping, so we got a little thrill, and then Reggie already got some ideas from my work by seeing all of this. So I wanted to say that, and if it's all right, I just have another announcement. Jay Shree's not been doing well, and Vishaka and her husband have been up for all hours looking after him. He's a little stubborn, He didn't want to go to the hospital, but we brought him there anyways. I don't know the details after that. It was nice that they stayed with him, and you may be called to be with him for the next little, something like that. So that's, looking after, taking care of the police. It's part of our major services here. And some of us are going to be at stage. Like I'm traveling also with Janani West, he's 80. And I didn't know he was gone age so quickly, and it was very slow. It just needs all kinds of help, and getting in the van, that kind of thing. So don't think it's not going to happen to you. So therefore, we take care of these devices as best we can whenever the opportunity arises, and we will be reciprocated. People will help us when we can. So anyways, we appreciate everybody being on the lookout for everyone when the devotees are ill or they're aged. This is real saving. Save it to the devotees. It hits Krishna's heart. You're looking after my devotees. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service, Maharaj.
No problem. Thank you for yours. And what are you doing?
Sunday evening.
Okay, so I'll give you a big hug tonight or something. And thank you all. You're such a fantastic group. Honestly, you guys are such brains in the darkness of Kali Yuga. It's pretty astounding. All this collective bhakti and and it's just terrific what you're able to do for this community. Thank you. And we want the opportunity to thank Brihat, who really was instrumental in getting the whole operation started 3 years ago, right?
Just two?
Just 2 years ago? Okay, great. Well, it seems to be just yesterday. 2 years.
Well, it's easy to start a party, but you and Vishaka and others are keeping the Bhakti Academy going.
But
So
you've
thank
got energy, so Shakti later. Shooting up, setting our way. So we're like some kind of ray or some laser. So we're grateful for that.
It's whatever you want to put in the prasadam here. I feel so good when I take the prasadam here.
Oh, great.
And speaking of prasadam, I think it's about that time. I know everyone is, at least when it's 8:30, I immediately start to think, what are you talking about today? Maharaj, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Being here. And let's all keep Jai Shri Prabhu in our prayers.
Yes, please.
Very, very critical time for him. And yes, we'll become very dear to Krishna if we pray for him, especially go and offer service. Okay, Srila Prabhupada.